This is everything you should do for your Lenovo Legion Go 2. We're going to go through so many setup tips as well as doing some tips at the end which are going to net you some performance gains. So let's get to it because it's quite a long list. So you've got your Lenovo Legion Go 2 and the first thing you want to do is change your VRAM because for some stupid reason Lenovo put 2 GB as default. We need to change that, otherwise your games are going to run really badly. Now the first thing you can do is either do this in the BIOS, and you get into the BIOS by holding volume up and then powering on the device and letting go of the power button whilst holding volume up. This will then get you into the BIOS. So you'll see a screen that says BIOS setup. Hit that one, go to more settings in the bottom right, and there should be display settings. And then you'll see UMA buffer size, and this is going to be your VRAM settings. So click on that, and I would recommend actually going to 12 gigabytes because then you can just set it and forget it. You do not need any more than 12 gig, and that actually leaves 20 gig of RAM left to the system or the CPU side. Maybe in the future I'll do a video comparing game performance against the different VRAM sizes. So if you're interested, then just subscribe. But there is actually another way you can change the VRAM without going into the BIOS. So if you don't want to do that, what you can actually do is head over to the AMD software. So just go down to search AMD, and then you can actually go in there instead. Now what you need to do is go to the performance tab and then go to tuning just down here. And then you'll see variable graphics memory, dedicated graphics memory, and remaining system memory. So you can see I've actually got 12 gigabytes selected, and then the remaining system memory is 20 gig. And if I click that drop down, then I can just select whatever I want all the way up to 24 gig, which is ridiculous. But 12 gig is where you want to be. Anything from 8, 10, and 12 is fine, honestly. But I just 12 gig it, and then you're good. Now we need to make sure everything is updated. So what you want to do is head over to settings again on Windows, go down to Windows Update and just check for updates. That's the first port of call. There's now another place we need to go to, which is the Microsoft Store just here. And then we want to go down to downloads in the bottom left and then simply check for updates. But that's not it. We've got one more place to check. So what we could do is press our Legion space button up here in the top left. And then once that's loaded, head over to settings. And then down in the bottom there, we've got disks and drivers. So hit disks and drivers and then driver updates, check for updates. And this will check for the Lenovo approved updates. So those are the 3 places you want to check for updates. However, there might be a chance that Windows has installed a bad GPU driver for you, right? So I'd recommend reinstalling the official driver that is recommended by Lenovo, which we can do by heading over to the Lenovo website. So I'm going to open Google Chrome here and then go to their display and video graphics just here. And then it will show you that the latest one, at least at the time of recording this video, is this one that was released on the 9th of October. Now I can hit download just down there and download that, but we're not done yet. What we need to do next is actually download a software called Display Driver Uninstaller, which is free, DDU, it's often referred to. So we're gonna head over to Google again. You can just type in DDU and there we go, Display Driver Uninstaller. And then just download this. Now that you've got both the actual driver from Lenovo and DDU downloaded, go and turn off your Wi-Fi because we want to stop Windows forcing that install of a potential bad driver, right? Head over to your downloads, open up Display Driver Uninstaller, and then it will pop up like this. It will give you a warning saying, you're not in safe mode. Don't worry, you don't need to be in safe mode for this. So just literally load it up. On the right-hand side here, you can select driver type. We're gonna hit GPU, and it will automatically select AMD. And then up here, you wanna do clean and restart. Now, I'm not gonna do this because I've already done it, but just hit clean and restart. Your system will restart. Now, providing that you've already kept the Wi-Fi off, now you can go and run that Lenovo driver that we downloaded earlier, and then it will install the correct GPU driver. I didn't actually have an issue with this. I still did this process anyway, but Windows actually installed the correct driver. So it's just an off chance that if you're getting subpar performance, it could be part of that, or it could be because you've not done the rest of the tips in this video yet. So go and subscribe. Now, the next thing we want to do is, again, load up Legion Space, so controller calibration, because it might not have been calibrated correctly out of the factory. So we want to go through each one of these, at least the left stick, the triggers, and anything else you're going to use. If you're often using gyro, you can do that as well. For me, it would be left stick, left trigger, right trigger, and just go through and calibrate these. Now it will do an on-screen prompt. So here we go. Let's just do the left stick. So press A to start calibration. A. Fully rotate the joystick 2 or more times and then release it. And there we go. Now we've got calibrated controls, which will just make you game better, right? It will make your aiming better. Now, one thing I've done, which you might not like, but I actually like to use game bar. So I've reprogrammed one of these buttons to be game bar. Now we've got 2 really cool buttons down here. We've got like a tab switcher. I've got nothing open, so it's not switching, but it's like an alt tab switcher on the bottom left, which I've left. But this one before was show desktop. I don't care for that. So what I've done is I've reprogrammed that to be Windows or Xbox game bar, which is really handy. So I can access games here, I can change settings, I can do all sorts of stuff, all from this single button, which is really handy, especially with another tip that we'll be utilizing later. This comes in handy. So all this is just a rebind of Windows plus G. So I'm going to open up Legion Space again, and we're going to go all the way to the left to button mapping. Now I'm going to view and edit layout, and then I can go all the way down here, and we've got Windows plus G on that button just there. So as you can see there, Windows plus G. And that is all I've done. So I've clicked on this one to say, hey, I want to change this. I've gone over to macros or key combinations just here. And then I've literally just touched the buttons that I want to macro onto that, which is just Windows and G, because that is the shortcut for Windows or Xbox game bar, right? And then that's it. You have to press Y to confirm that. And then you can back out, and then you can just simply press that button, and there we go. Now, because we're talking about button mapping, one thing I really like to do as well is create a separate profile. So just to show you what I mean, you can have a mouse pointer with the little trackpad, right? So I can go up to the right here. We'll come back here in a minute anyway. But if I go down to controllers, you've got enable touchpad, and I actually like enable touchpad vibration as well. It gives it like a haptic feedback, just like a Steam Deck, right? So that I can feel that, okay, this is actually working. But one thing I don't like is there's no right click, and left click is press and hold. And you can right click, but you have to like press and hold for ages, and it has to be very specific. It's really annoying. I do not like that. So what I want is a separate controller configuration. So I can go up in here where it says the console key mapping. I've got gamepad selected, but if I want to do a load of like system work, I can hit desktop, which I've created, and I'll show you how to do, right? And now my right bumper is now left click. So you can see I'm dragging a little box on the window just there. And my right trigger is right click. And that makes it so much easier to navigate. So I've kept the mouse pointer as the touchpad, but all I've done is rebind these two, right? So let me show you how to do that. Let me go back to the gamepad mode, which is what I leave it in for gaming. It's only if I want to do installs and mess around with stuff as a PC that I do this, just because it makes my life easier. So we're going to go back to Legion Space. We're going to go to, well, let's back out so it's a full show of how to do this. Button mapping, right? And then you've got current profile. I click that, and then I do add template. So let's go add template. I've named this desktop, right? So I'm just going to cancel this out because I've already made one. So let's go to it. So add template, desktop, and then I can back out and then go view and edit layout. So let's go down to rear view. And all I've done is go to mouse click and mouse click. So I've got mouse left click and then mouse right click. And that is it. And then at any point in time, if you want to swap it, press your right menu button, go over to the key mapping section, change it from gamepad to desktop. And now you can actually navigate Windows so much easier with left and right click, as well as your touchpad. Now, if I want to get rid of that, if I'm going to play a game, I can hit gamepad, right? And that's going to switch it over. And the same thing is if you start doing misinputs with your hand, with your palm here, what you can do is open this up and then just disable touchpad. And now that's going to disable it. So if you're playing a game and you're finding that, you know, you're accidentally inputting, well, then you can just disable that touchpad. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. It depends on the game that I'm playing, but there we go. Now there's some hidden shortcuts on this that some of you might have skipped past on the setup, but these are super handy. So these are just built into the device. I've not had to do this. It just comes like this. So all you need to do is press and hold the Legion space button and then B. That brings up your keyboard. So I found this really handy. Some apps you'll open and you need to type in your keyboard or whatever. And even if you press in it, in the like typing box, your keypad won't come up, right? Your keyboard won't pop up and it's like, oh, it's so frustrating. But now you can press and hold that, press B, and there it comes. You can just do that whenever you want. It's very easy, really easy to use. Now there's another one that I really like, which is Control-Alt-Delete. So again, Legion space, press and hold, and then press A. And then you can go to Control-Alt-Delete. You can open up your task manager if you want to. Give it a sec, and there we go. It will load up task manager. Very, very cool, nice and easy. And then another one that's pretty handy is Legion space and X. Would do a screenshot, a Windows screenshot. Now, if you want to see all of the built-in ones that are there, what they've done is a really handy Legion space, press and hold, and then left bumper. And there we go. There's all the different shortcuts. Now, the only ones that I find useful that I use all the time are the ones that I've just demonstrated for you. But, you know, feel free to have a look around. Now, this one has been a bit confusing for some people. So we've got different operating modes. So if I go into the Legion Space app and hit Performance, we've got Quiet, Balanced, Performance, and Custom. But the thing that a lot of people are getting confused about is OS power mode. So operating system power mode, because you've got performance, balance, and efficiency, right? And more so, you'll be likely doing this in the right-hand menu. So if I press the right-hand menu just here, and then go to the top one, we've got the quiet, balance, and performance. Now, I honestly recommend just using the performance mode. That is perfect balance of power and everything, because on battery, that's going to be 20 watts, and that is perfect. That's all you need to know. But you need to be aware of performance, balance, and efficiency, especially if you're doing the custom power mode. So custom power mode let you change these, right? So you've got 3 sliders. The top slider is your actual sustained wattage. So if I put this at, let's say, I don't know, 20, it's technically a 20 watt profile. The next one down is the 2-minute boost. So it will boost up to whatever. Now, a lot of people like to put these as like 20, 20, 20. But the thing is we've seen better performance if you bump them up a few notches. So let's just say you put 20, 23, 25, right? That's going to net you better performance overall. Now, you can do this with the D-pad and everything and just select them and then change it this way. So let's say I did that. That's going to perform better than them all saying 20, right? But the thing when you're making custom profiles, just the same as when you're selecting the other ones, you must be aware of the operating system power mode, because this really does make a difference. So it's a bit counterintuitive because you think, oh, performance, that's going to get me the best performance, right? Well, not really. Not in terms of the GPU side, because we're running an APU here. So everything is a system on a chip, right? You've got the CPU and the GPU shared on one chip. You don't have a discrete GPU where there's a separate component. Everything is on the APU, CPU and GPU combined. Now, these operating system power modes are dictating how much power the CPU is getting. Now, if we put more power to the CPU, we're now taking power away from the GPU, which we don't want because most games are GPU intensive. So we want to be giving the most juice to the GPU, right? So some games this does not apply for. Emulation generally is more CPU heavy, and you can all see this with metrics, and you can see if a game requires more like power to the CPU, well then you can change this on the fly. But as a general blanket statement, just generalizing here, which you should never do, but I'm going to, what you want to do is put more power to the GPU, and we can do that by selecting efficiency. So efficiency is almost like turning CPU boost on and off. It's not, but that's the way I kind of like to think about it, right? So efficiency is going to be 0% power extra to the CPU. So the CPU is going to still work fine. It's just now going to free up more power to dictate and push to the GPU. Balanced is great. That is a good one to use if you want. That's about 20% more power over to the CPU. And then performance is actually like 50% more power to the CPU, not the GPU. So it's kind of counterintuitive. Performance is actually less performance for the GPU. So if you're just doing Windows stuff and maybe you've got like a keyboard and mouse hooked up to this and you're doing some work or whatever, then put it on performance because you will want more CPU power, right? But for gaming, you'll likely want to just leave it on efficiency. So it doesn't matter whether you're doing a custom profile or on performance like I like to use, because this is a 20-watt profile, which I think is the best balance of power and battery life. Stick that on efficiency. Now, whilst we're in this right menu, let's just go through it. So at the top, we've got a performance monitor, so you can see your CPU, your GPU, your VRAM, and your RAM, which I really like. I think this is very cool because you can just access this at any time by pressing that right bumper, button at the top just there. Then we've got the thermal mode. I honestly just leave this on performance. So you've got smart fan. I just leave it on that. I've not had an issue, but if you want to tinker with it, go ahead. You've got FPS limiter there if you so wish. I don't limit my FPS unless I'm in a game that's maybe like a 2D platformer like Hollow Knight, Silksong or something like that. And then honestly, I just put VSync on and that will just cap the frame rate anyway to your maximum refresh. So I don't even bother with FPS cap, but you can do if you so want to from here. The next one down is your brightness, your volume, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, your resolution. You've got your display refresh rate. Again, I just leave it at 144 Hertz, but it will drain a bit more power. And then frame rate monitor or frame monitor. This is going to be your metrics. So it's just going to be, just your FPS. Then you've got the normal mode where it shows you your GPU, your battery, your FPS, and your CPU usage, or the full one, and it gives you a nice breakdown of everything there. Honestly, I mainly just use the AMD overlay, so I don't really use this because I find this a little bit buggy sometimes. And I will say, if you've got this up, it will impact performance. I've already tested this. You will actually take performance away because it's running this over the top of the game. So I normally just see roughly what the FPS is and go, yeah, that's fine. I've got a VRR window of 30 to 144 Hertz, so I know I'm fine providing I'm over 30 FPS. Provided I'm happy with the FPS I'm getting, I then turn it off and then I just game and forget about it because this screen is incredible. Then we've got RSR. So this is actually an AMD driver level upscaler. I don't do that from here. I've not tested whether it works or not, but in most of these handhelds, this just doesn't seem to work. It's better to do it from the source directly from AMD, and I'll show you how to do that very, very soon. Then you've got one tap screen burn in preview. Now, honestly, I have no idea what this is because it always turns itself off. I think once you enable it, it does like a refresh, and then it turns itself off once it's done. It's not something that you can leave on because I kept going like, yeah, let's turn it on. And then all of a sudden, it will turn itself off. Maybe it's a bug. It could be a bug and it might get updated with an update. But honestly, I don't know exactly how this works. And if I hover over the little question mark, it doesn't even tell me anyway. So the next one is controller. So you can change here to our desktop one if you want to, that we created earlier. I'm going to leave it on gamepad. You can do view layout. You can change your controller vibration. I leave it on medium. FPS mode's fine. Lighting effects, I've done actually in the Legion space, but you can change it here. Enable the touchpad. Enable the vibration for the touchpad. Gyro as well, and controller hibernation. The next one down is system quick settings. I really like this because you've got a bunch of stuff just here, which is very, very useful. So you've got the Xbox button, you've got Alt Escape, which is just going to minimize everything, as well as Windows D. You've got Alt F4, which is end task. So that's just going to cancel anything you're running. You've got Task Manager there, File Manager, Virtual Keyboard, Screenshot, Mute, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Escape, Alt Tab, and Alt Enter, which is pretty cool. So you can access all of that from here. The next one down is productivity mode, and this basically just means that when you plug this into a dock, it's going to set the external display as the primary monitor, which you probably want, so you can just leave that on. And then the next one is just like a little help menu, and then right at the very bottom, you've got sleep, restart, shuts down, exit, and cancel. Now, because this is a handheld, maybe you care about your battery health. So what we want to do is go over to Legion Space, right? And then we want to go to Settings. So we're into settings, we're going to go to general and then scroll down, and then we want to see, where is it? I've lost it. Optimize battery charging. So what this does is caps the maximum battery level at 80% to extend battery life. Now, I've described this before in one of my ramblings and people found it helpful, which I'm surprised about. So effectively what this does is it caps the battery at 80% full. And the reason why that's important is I'm going to give you a little demonstration with my hands of when you're at 100% battery, right? So when you've charged your battery up to 100%, and let's say you're leaving this docked or you play in plugged into the wall, that battery, imagine, is a square, right? And inside that square is all the energy particles. When it's all 100%, there's no room for them to move. They are all stressed out and bumping into each other, like lots of energy compacted. That is putting one hell of a lot of strain and stress on that battery, which is going to degrade it over time. If you then take 20% of that away, so capping the battery at 80%, so now we've got 20% less in that little box, there's now 20% more room for this energy to move around freely, thus creating less stress on that battery, which in the long run will actually help your battery's extended life. So if you want to kill your battery pretty early after like a year, then just leave it at 100% all the time, plugged in, docked, whatever. Not ideal. If you actually care about your device and want to have the best battery life, well then cap it at 80%. However, I would say that mainly applies to if you're sat plugged into a power outlet all the time or docked. For me, I mainly play handheld on battery life, right? On battery. So I actually don't bother capping at 80%. I charge it up to 100% and then I deplete the battery down to, let's say, about 40%, because the same is true with when you deplete too much. If the battery's too drained, that can also put a lot of stress on the battery. The ideal range really is to keep your battery between sort of 40 to 70%. That's kind of like the best sort of like health of your battery there. But of course, that's there if you want to deal with that. Now, if you don't plan on installing Xbox full screen experience, what you can do is go to the game bar like we've shown you, right? And then I recommend going over to the widget store and then getting something called AMD Control Panel. Now, I'm not affiliated or anything like that with this. I've just bought this myself because it's cool, and it's about £1. It's probably about $2 to buy this app, and it's very, very useful, providing that you're not going to be using Xbox full screen experience, because it doesn't work with that. I have tried it. But if you're just sticking in Windows, normal Windows, this is really, really useful. Now, what this does is lets you control AMD settings from the game bar, whether you're in a game or not, and they're really, really handy, right? So let's just open up AMD software because I can show you how this is working. Let's go to gaming and then go to graphics and then scroll down. If I turn on AFMF, right, in the background, do you see that turn on and then turn off? RIS on and then off. So this is really, really handy if you're going to be sticking in Windows. Very cool app. I recommend it for how cheap it is, because then you can access it from Game Bar. And the same thing is if you're playing docked and you've got an Xbox controller or any PC controller hooked up, then you can access Game Bar and enable these without having to do anything. Now we're in the AMD software. So again, let's shut that down, go back up, go to AMD software just here, right? And go to gaming and then graphics. You can do this on a game-by-game basis. So let's just take an example of Resident Evil 4, because I like this game for this, right? I always turn on RIS. I play most games at 800p and then turn on RIS and just crank it up to like 80%, because then that makes it look more like 1200p whilst getting the performance benefit of 800p. So you'll net a load of FPS by running games at 800p and then using RIS or in-game upscaling sharpness. So you can set these per game profile in the AMD software, or you can just blanket do it to apply it to everything. But I don't recommend this because some of these options are upscalers or frame gen, which I do not recommend on every game. If a game has already got FSR support, let's take FSR 3. So you've got the game, let's take Spider-Man or something like that, right? And it's got FSR 3 and FSR 3 frame gen. Use that in the game because that has been implemented by the developers and it will work better than this. This is a driver level upscaler. It knows nothing about the game. It's just forcing it on top. And that's why I'm taking Resident Evil 4 as an example, because that, yes, has FSR upscaling, but it does not have frame gen. So we can force frame gen on with AFMF2. Now, before we go any further, what I like to do is actually enable the shortcuts, so hotkeys it's called, right? So what we need to do is go over to the settings tab and then hotkeys, and then you can use hotkeys, yes, enable that, because then that brings up a load of these hotkey toggles, right? Now, there's 3 that I use on the unused buttons that are here. So I've got a grip over my Legion Go 2, but these 2 buttons, I actually use these even when I'm not in FPS mode. I've assigned these to actions on the AMD software, and the same with this one over here, and I'm going to demonstrate that now. I'm going to go over to controllers and button mapping. I'm going to go view and edit layout. I'm going to go all the way down to rear view, and then you can see here I've got left alt plus R, left control plus left shift plus O, and then also left alt, left shift and G. So now I'm in Resident Evil 4, and you can see I've got my AMD overlay up there in the top, and I can toggle it on and off with this back paddle that I've programmed. So I can toggle that on and off, and the best bit is I programmed AFMF2 down here. So I'm going to click that. AMD fluid motion frames is now active, and now I've got over 100 FPS. So yeah, pretty mad. And I can just enable or disable this on any game that doesn't have frame gen built in natively, right? And I can just press that button. Oh, now it's disabled. Now I'm not using it, right? And I've also got the performance monitor up here as well. And again, I can press that back paddle that I've assigned and get that to go away if I want to. And the best bit is I'm doing all of this on Xbox full screen experience, and that is the main reason why I assigned all this stuff, because I've actually got Xbox full screen experience installed on here, and this is really cool because no background processes are running, so you're going to save RAM, but also because there's nothing running in the background, that AMD Adrenalin software needs to be programmed, right? I've not opened the app or anything, but because I've assigned these hotkeys, it's just going, yep, okay, I'm going to do this even when you're in Xbox full screen experience. So I can literally just be in Xbox full screen experience, right? I can go around this way, or I've got the Alt Tab switcher, which is a native button on the Lenovo Legion Go 2. Anyway, I've not reassigned that button, but then I've also got game bar up here as well. And of course, if I go back to the Resident Evil game, right, and give it a second, return to game, then I've got those hotkeys that I've just shown you just here, so I can enable frame gen and see this. And if I want to, I can press that right button and then it will actually load up AMD Adrenalin software in the background. Here we go. Now it's opened the full suite without me having to back out, launch Windows, start all those unnecessary processes. I've got all of this at my fingertips while saving all that RAM as well. Now, if you're interested in Xbox full screen experience and how to install that, well, I've done a dedicated video for that, so go and check that out. I'll link it at the end of this video. But we're not done yet. There's still some things we can do to net performance gains from this device. Now, there's 3 things we're going to do now. The first thing we're going to do is go into search and then type in core isolation and click on that, and then turn off memory integrity. Now, all of these things do lower the security of your device, so it does make it a slight more of a security risk. So if you like wearing eye patches and being a pirate, do not do any of these 3 tips that I'm recommending, but these are actually recommended by Microsoft to turn off to net performance gains, providing that all you're doing is legitimate gaming on this device. Just be aware that it will actually increase your security risk, but I'm not doing anything shady. I'm just playing games on my device, and I also have home Wi-Fi like security, right? So I've got like an antivirus on my Wi-Fi router that will stop most problems before it gets to my device. So turn off core isolation is the first one. The next thing we're going to do is go to search again and then type in Windows features turn on or off Windows features, open this up. Now, for me, this was actually already disabled, but if it's not for you, then you need to do this. You'll see somewhere on that screen, it says virtual machine platform. Untick that and then hit OK. And then finally, what we need to do is device encryption. So we're going to go to settings. We're going to go to privacy and security, device encryption, and then turn off device encryption. This will take ages to turn off. Just bear with it. And of course, when you do these things, it might ask you to restart on each step. I've already done them, so I'm just kind of like telling you what to do, but there we go. And that will net you performance gains as well. Just bear in mind that, it will increase your security risk. And then finally, because this is an absolutely beautiful screen, this is the best screen on any handheld by an absolute mile. This is ridiculous. It's an OLED 16 by 10, 8.8 inch VRR with a window of 30 to 144 hertz, HDR certified with true black 1000. It is absolutely ridiculous. But you need to calibrate this screen. And I'm going to do a dedicated video all to this because it's quite a lengthy process and I want to make sure that you're all fully paying attention. And this video is probably already about 3 hours long with all these tips and tricks anyway. So make sure you subscribe because I will do a dedicated video on how to calibrate the screen because 99% of people I see online are doing it incorrectly. So there we go. That is the Lenovo Legion Go 2 and all of my tips and tricks, everything I've done and I recommend you do so far. There might be more coming. If I've missed any of your tips and I can't speak, any of your tips and tricks, let me know down in the comments because maybe I'll do them as well. Maybe I'll show them in another video. I don't know. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe this video. You can become a member to support us as well and you get to chat to us on our private Discord as well. And I'll see you in the next one. Stick around for that HDR calibration video. And if you're interested about Xbox full screen experience, that video is already up on the channel now. Bye.